For the honor of Hogwarts! You know, I never know if the gags I come up with in these intros are clever or just really dumb. But I don't dwell on it long enough to figure it out. Hey! So, on a video I put up not long ago in the break room, I said I thought it was done talking about She-Ra, and I'm kind of not. This might be the last one for a little while, but I've thought that before, so we'll see. This whole notion of sorting characters into Hogwarts houses I've done before. I've done it with my partner Liz with Phase 1 Marvel characters. I've done it with certain Disney characters. I've done it with the Doctor. And I do plan to do it with some other things at some other points. But right now, I just want to talk about She-Ra. So I'm going to sort the characters into Hogwarts houses. I thought I was going to let this idea go, but then Jessie Gender put up her sorting of the Star Trek Next Generation characters into Hogwarts houses, and I'm like, no, I want to do it. So here we go. Now, I'm not going to cover every single character in this show. There's actually a lot, and there's a lot of really great more background characters that I easily could have sorted as well, but I'm not trying to make a half-hour video out of this. So let's start with the main character, Adora. Adora's a Gryffindor. Oh boy, is she a Gryffindor. Through and through. She's very determined. She's very stubborn. She is very into, oh, I'll just do it myself, or sometimes even extrapolating out into, nobody else can do this but me. Not necessarily as a self-aggrandizing thing, but like assuming all of the responsibility. That's a pretty dang Gryffindor thing. And Catra's a Slytherin. I really did debate on this. I had a couple of notions about her, and I did wonder if she's just a Hufflepuff with a lot of baggage. And I'm not going to completely rule that out, but at the end of the day, I think she is still a Slytherin because her main focus is on how does this help me? And she can obviously be very bitter, be very spiteful. She's not necessarily ambitious in the way a lot of Slytherins can be, but she knows what she wants. And if she can't have it, no one can. And that sort of possessiveness and that way of looking at the world, that's a pretty Slytherin approach to life. So let's round out the houses a little bit more and let's bring in a Ravenclaw. Bo. I did also think about possibly putting Bo into Hufflepuff, but he really does have that intellectual mind and that intellectual approach to things. He's very friendship and bonding connected, which is a little bit more of a Hufflepuff, especially as hard as he has that. But end of the day, he's into his tracker pad, he's into learning things, he's into knowledge, he's into tech. He is into learning the rules and going about it the right way. And yeah, I think being raised by a couple of academics that rubbed off on him in a way that resulted in a Ravenclaw. Now Glimmer's a Slytherin. We don't get a ton of heroic Slytherins, but you look at what she is about, and she has a very flagrant disregard for the rules. She is very into the results. She doesn't care as much about the methods. Not quite so far as ends justify the means, but if something's going to get her the end result she wants, she's going to be way more willing to go in a direction the rest of them just aren't. I mean, just look at the direction things went with the Heart of Etheria, what she was willing to do because it would mean that they would defeat the Horde. A noble goal, to be sure. Methodology, oof, that went rough on her. And she is very end results focused with a lot less attention paid to how she's going to get there. And that's a pretty Slytherin approach, especially if you're going to try and lead that way. Alright, so I've teased a couple of ones that I almost put in Hufflepuff. Let's talk about a straight up Hufflepuff. My girl, Scorpia. All of her focus, it's on friends, and it's on helping her friends, and it's on that connection. It's on building those relationships, protecting those people, and not really even honestly being about damage. She can deal out damage even before she reconnects with the runestone. She is a formidable opponent, but end of the day, she is way more interested in helping, assisting, boosting, and protecting the people she cares about than she is about the advancement of the Horde. She cares about that because the people around her care about that, not in the abstract. She is so driven by her friendships and her connections, and yeah, that's pretty Huffle. So let's bring in another princess, and let's talk Entrapta. Entrapta's a Ravenclaw. Entrapta might honestly be the most Ravenclaw who ever Ravenclawed. She is just all about the information, the data, the knowledge, the learning. She doesn't people very well. That's not her natural inclination. And that's I'm not saying Ravenclaws are bad at being with people, but I'm just saying her focus is so harshly on knowledge. The rest of the stuff just, until she's really screwed it up and it's brought to her attention, it just doesn't ping her radar how to even be dealing with that. She's just so straightforward and so focused, and it's all about data. It is all about, the next advancement. It's all about the knowledge, and yeah, super Ravenclaw. I did do some of the more supporting characters. Let's sort of knock a couple of them out quickly. Let's do a couple. Natasha, Spinnerella. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff. So competitive, so focused on winning, has a plan for how to completely take out anybody else, and about making people feel good. Happy to lose to Frosta because it'll make the kid feel good. So quick to point out, well, it doesn't count because we lost on purpose. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff. We have Mermista. Mermista was hard to place. She's one of those people who's a little bit of a, we need to come up with another house because she's not a harsh fit in any of these. At the end of the day, though, and I consulted with Liz on some of these that I had trouble with, and we came to the conclusion Mermista is a Ravenclaw. That's a little bit, by default, the way we got there might be a little bit odd, but the first thing is she is into stimulating her mind. She loves a mystery. She loves engaging that way. She's very disaffected and distant and very like, yeah, whatever. But she does still get excited by a mystery, by figuring things out, by having that kind of approach to things. And the ultimate clincher was Liz and I have a mutual friend who reminds us more than a little bit of Mermista, and she's a Ravenclaw. So that was kind of the clincher on that. Let's jump over to villains real quick. Let's talk about Shadow Weaver. If Entrapta is the most Ravenclaw who ever Ravenclawed, Shadow Weaver might just be the most Slytherin who ever slithered. Oh boy. So to the same extent that Entrapta is focused on knowledge and learning, Shadow Weaver's all about power. Magic power. She doesn't care so much about political or so, but she wants power. She has worked hard for what she has. She will not let it go. She wants more. She always wants more. And her loyalty is to accumulating power, not to whoever she's actually serving. That's why she doesn't really have a lot of compunctions about abandoning Hordak or Catra, for that matter. And it's why even right up until the very end, she still had one eye on how will we focus this power? How will we make use of this power? And yeah, she had her one moment at the end there, but no, she's really Slytherin. Let's get back to the good guys, and how about Frosta? Frosta's a Gryffindor. I think it was her competitive nature that was ultimately what put her over the edge on that. She was a little bit hard to place. But I think at the end of the day, just how eager she is to rush in there, dash in, and just take on everything. Come on, come at me. I'm like, that's a That's a Gryffindor attitude right there. And it's interesting because, her first appearance, she seems much more reserved. And then once she loosens up and doesn't feel like she has to be all stoic because she's in charge, oh boy, that kid cuts loose. And in a very Gryffindor way. Let's get one more Gryffindor hero out there. Seahawk. Wow, yeah. Adventure! Very Gryffindor, top to bottom, between his love of adventure, his boisterousness, his theatricality, his ego. Again, not to say that no other house has an ego. I'm a Slytherin. I have a massive ego. But the fact that his ego is very tied to his sense of being an adventurer and of leading this amazing heroic life, that's a Gryffindor kind of ego. We don't have too many left. Let's get a couple of more villains in there. Hordak, I also had trouble placing. I went back and forth with him because he's got elements of a lot of different houses going on. There's really not much in the way of Huffle going on with him, but he obviously has that ambition that you would have for a Slytherin, but that does seem to be more interested in reclaiming his place at Prime side rather than accumulating power for its own sake or for himself, which makes him kind of a bit of a true believer. And that sort of level of faith, determination, unwavering, that's a bit more Gryffindor. End of the day, though, ultimately, for all the shifts that he goes through, I gotta put him in Slytherin, ultimately. Because even though he may not be focused, initially at least, on accumulating power for himself, he still respects power over anything else. That's why he wants to get back in Prime's good graces. Prime is the most powerful. He wants back in on that. And that adoration of power, even if the ways in which he is trying to accumulate it are ultimately going to benefit someone else more than it's going to benefit him, doesn't make him any less of a Slytherin. As for Horde Prime, he was tough. I went back and forth between two possibilities. And the linchpin on which it was going to be was whether or not I thought he bought into his own shtick. And what I mean by that is he's got his entire thing of come and bask in Prime's light. I will bring peace and all of that. So the question for me that I had to come down on a side on was, does he actually buy that? Or is that the shtick he says for appearances or to engender that sense of that cultish sense of his clones? Or, is that a persona, or does he actually believe that? Because if he doesn't believe it, then it's all an act and it's just so he can maintain power. That would make him more Slytherin. But if he does, that's a bit more Gryffindor. That's a bit more just seeing the way the world should be and just doing everything to make it that way. And I do think he believes it. Because at this point, given the amount of power he has and his reach, he doesn't have to keep up appearances anymore. He's in control of virtually everything. He doesn't have to put on an act for anybody. So there's no reason to do that anymore, if that is an act. Not to mention, at the end, when he's talking about basically burning the universe, his whole thing about we will all be cleansed with fire, and he was willing to go down, that's not something someone who was just putting on an act does. That's someone who has drunk their own Kool-Aid does. And for that reason, I am saying that he was a Gryffindor. He had his ideals for peace and perfection in the universe that happened to basically be him. And he was just going to bring it to everyone. That level of determination, that certainty, that degree of faith, particularly faith in self. Yeah, I'm marking him as a Gryffindor. We got one more. Swiftwind. He's a Huffle. He's that lovable guy. He is so much about the connection, particularly with Adora, with She-Ra. But beyond that, he never loses sight of wanting to free his fellow horses. Free hay for all. He loves fun and hanging out and singing and being with Bo and Seahawk and having friends and just he can be a crusader. He can get behind a cause and all the rest of that. But at the end of the day, he just wants to have fun. And I find that very helpful. There you go. The characters of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power sorted into Hogwarts Houses. What do you think about my determinations and my rationale for who I put where? Did it make sense to you? Or am I completely off my rocker? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something on down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Usual stuff, you know what it is. Like, subscribe, share this around. That's a big help. Comments are also greatly appreciated. All of these things assist me in the algorithm and keep me from getting completely buried, which has happened before. So that is all incredibly appreciated. Of course, I have a Patreon. Who doesn't these days? Link in the description, but don't worry. You don't have to do any of it. End of the day, you're the council. I only run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.